For 6 long hours, the ashes of beloved Chinese actor Menglong vanished without a trace. What was meant to be a peaceful farewell turned into the most chilling and chaotic moment since his tragic fall from a Beijing high-rise. Fans across Asia called it the 6 hours that broke the silence, and now, details from those inside the funeral hall reveal a story that feels more like a political thriller than a celebrity burial. The day began with solemn beauty. White lilies framed the hall, photos of Yu in his most iconic roles looping softly on a screen. His mother, dressed in pale blue, clutched a folded letter, the same one fans believed he had written just weeks before his death. At exactly 10 a.m., the ceremony began under heavy security. Cameras were banned, journalists turned away, and only 30 guests were permitted inside. By noon, the urn was to be sealed and transported to his resting place in Chaoyang Cemetery. But by 12:30, the urn was gone. According to one staff member, who later spoke under anonymity, "We turned to prepare the car for departure. When we came back, the urn was not there. No one saw anyone leave, but everyone noticed something had changed in the air. It was like someone had pulled time apart." Within minutes, panic spread through the hall. Yu's manager, Sunderong, reportedly shouted at the event coordinators, demanding to know how such a thing could happen under full security surveillance. His voice echoed through the marble walls. "You can't lose a man twice." Authorities were called immediately. Yet witnesses claimed they weren't allowed to contact the police directly. "Orders came from above," said one mourner. It was then that the ceremony was abruptly paused, guests ushered outside under the guise of technical procedures. Outside, fans who had gathered to pay final respects noticed something strange. Around 1:15 p.m., 2 unmarked black vans drove through the cemetery gates. They carried no official plates. Security tightened around the hall, and bystanders were told to move away. Online chatter erupted as whispers turned into digital wildfire. "They've taken his ashes," one user wrote on Weibo. "The truth is being buried deeper than him." Another claimed to have seen the urn being transferred to a restricted vehicle by individuals wearing gloves and masks. By 3 p.m., a journalist from an independent outlet tried to enter the site but was stopped. "The security guards were shaking," she later posted. "One whispered to me, 'It's not our job to know where they took him.'" Meanwhile, Menglong's mother had collapsed inside the mourning room. Witnesses said she screamed the same phrase over and over, "Bring my son back." Her cries were muffled by the sound of rushing footsteps and radios crackling in panic. The official statement from the Chaoyang Funeral Bureau came hours later, claiming that temporary procedural errors led to the relocation of cremation materials for authentication purposes. But the timeline didn't add up. Experts and insiders pointed out that such procedural checks never involve unrecorded transfers or sealed areas. That evening, Yu's close friend and former co-star, Wang Yijin, posted a single cryptic message on her private account. "The urn was warm when they brought it back. Think about that." Her words ignited a storm. Millions flooded comment sections demanding explanations, but her post disappeared within the hour. At 6:20 p.m., Menglong's urn was quietly returned to the hall. Cameras caught brief footage of 2 men in suits placing it back on the altar, their faces obscured. By then, every major outlet had been instructed to stick to the logistical delay story. But something about the timing, the 6-hour gap, refused to settle. A leaked voice recording from the funeral staff, later shared anonymously on Telegram, painted an even darker picture. In the audio, a woman's voice is heard whispering, "They said the ashes were being re-verified. But I saw another container, a second urn, smaller. I swear I saw his name tag moved from one to another." Could Menglong's ashes have been switched? Was something removed or added before their return? The questions rippled through Weibo faster than officials could contain them. By midnight, hashtags like #YouMenglong'Ashes and #6HoursGone had reached millions of views before being scrubbed from major platforms. Screenshots survived, though, some showing what appeared to be altered funeral documentation. The line where Yu's urn serial number was written had been overwritten, faint traces of a previous code still visible beneath. An investigative journalist based in Chengdu spoke off the record. This wasn't a mistake. Someone wanted those 6 hours. Someone used them. The problem is, no one dares ask what was inside that urn when it came back. Fans outside the cemetery lit candles, chanting his name through tears. One of them held up a handwritten sign. If they can steal his ashes, what else have they stolen from us? By the following morning, Menglong's studio released a short statement thanking fans for respecting the family's privacy and urging them not to believe unverified information. But insiders revealed that the studio had been pressured to publish it hours after multiple employees were summoned by authorities for questioning. Adding to the mystery, a leaked surveillance photo, blurred but haunting, surfaced online, showing two figures carrying a small container through a service exit behind the crematorium. The timestamp matched the exact window when Yu's urn was reportedly missing. The image quickly vanished, but not before fans downloaded and dissected it. Many swore the taller figure's silhouette resembled a man last seen on hotel CCTV footage the night Yu fell, the same man in black who had appeared again at the funeral gates. By now, even mainstream media couldn't ignore the uproar. Foreign outlets picked up the story under headlines like "Actor's Ashes Missing in China's Most Puzzling Funeral Mystery." But within 24 hours, all coverage in China had been erased or replaced by controlled narratives. Still, questions lingered. Why did the ashes vanish? What happened during those 6 hours? And why, when they finally returned, did Yu's mother reportedly refuse to touch the urn? A source close to the family whispered to reporters weeks later. She doesn't believe it's him anymore. As of today, no official explanation has satisfied the public. The urn remains sealed in a restricted chamber at the cemetery, with guards posted around the clock. No one, not even family, is allowed to open it. But every year, on the anniversary of Menglong's death, hundreds gather outside Chaoyang Cemetery holding candles and white roses. Some swear they've seen flickering lights near his grave just before midnight. And somewhere deep within the silence of those 6 missing hours lies a truth still fighting to rise. The silence inside the Chaoyang funeral hall that afternoon was suffocating. Every eye darted toward the empty pedestal where Menglong's urn had stood only minutes earlier. The soft melody playing from the speakers, one of Yu's own songs, now felt like a cruel echo mocking everyone in the room. A place meant for mourning had turned into a crime scene cloaked in whispers and fear. Witnesses say the shift was instant. One moment, the urn was there, glowing under a pale beam of light. The next, it was gone. The hall attendants froze, and the cameras positioned near the altar flickered once before going black. That blackout lasted exactly 7 minutes. When the feed resumed, the urn was missing. Yu's manager, Sunderong, was the first to break the silence. "Lock every door," he shouted, his voice trembling with disbelief. But by the time security obeyed, it was already too late. Someone or something had slipped away unnoticed. Outside, a gray drizzle began to fall, turning the pathway into a mirror of tears and reflection. Fans waiting beyond the barricades could sense something was wrong. It was like the air went cold, one fan recalled later. Even the birds stopped singing. Inside, Yu's mother sat motionless, her fingers gripping the letter she had written for her son. It was said to contain the truth about his final night, a letter she had refused to let anyone read. Now, as chaos built around her, that letter was her only anchor. At 12:55 p.m., a young funeral staffer named Lin tried to review the security footage. But before she could play it, a uniformed officer entered the control room and ordered her to step away. "This is no longer your concern," he said sternly, confiscating the storage drive. Lin's hands shook as she later told others. The footage didn't vanish, it was taken. By 1:30 p.m., unmarked vehicles began arriving. Their windows were tinted black. 2 men in dark suits stepped out, flashed credentials that no one could verify, and disappeared into the hall. When they emerged 30 minutes later, they carried a plain white box. Not the urn, but something that looked eerily similar in shape and size. Witnesses outside described the moment vividly. "They moved fast, like they were trained," said one vendor who had been selling flowers nearby. They didn't look at anyone. They didn't even flinch when people shouted. Online, the panic had already begun. Hashtags like hashtag where is Menglong and hashtag ashes gone missing dominated Weibo's trending page. Fans speculated wildly. Some believed the urn had been stolen to hide evidence. Others claimed it was part of a supernatural warning. Maybe his spirit doesn't want to rest. One post read before being deleted minutes later. Back inside, Yu's mother began sobbing uncontrollably. A close family friend whispered to her, "They'll bring it back. They just need to confirm something." But she shook her head, her voice breaking. "No, they're changing it." The clock struck 2 p.m. The rain grew heavier, thunder rolling in the distance. Suddenly, all lights in the hall flickered again. And in that momentary darkness, someone screamed. A mourner near the back claimed to have seen a figure standing by the curtain, tall, wearing a black coat, motionless. When the lights came back, the figure was gone. By 3:15 p.m., police cars had surrounded the perimeter, though no report was filed publicly. Witnesses noted how officers avoided eye contact and whispered into radios constantly. One officer, barely older than 25, was overheard muttering to a colleague, "We shouldn't even be here. This wasn't supposed to happen." Then came the strangest part. At exactly 4:44 p.m., the timestamp most fans later fixated on, the urn reappeared. It was placed quietly back on the altar by two men no one recognized. No explanation. No apology. Just a cold silence followed by a formal announcement. All proceedings will continue as planned. Please remain calm. But something felt off. The urn looked the same, yet many noticed subtle differences. A small scratch on its base that hadn't been there before, and the golden engraving of Yu's initials seemed slightly faded. Even the weight, when one staff member lifted it to reposition, felt lighter than before. When Yu's mother approached the urn, she froze. Her face drained of all color. "This is not my son," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Then she collapsed. Medics rushed to her aid, but the moment left the room trembling. Rumors spread that evening that Yu's original ashes had been secretly moved to another location. A telegram post from a verified insider claimed that samples were taken for forensic retesting, but never returned. Others whispered that the urn swap was to conceal what his body had revealed, traces of substances not mentioned in the official report. At 5:30 p.m., Yu's close friend, Wang Yijin, arrived unexpectedly. She was dressed in black, wearing dark glasses, her face hidden beneath a veil. When she saw the urn, she froze for a moment, then walked away from the altar without bowing, something that Chinese mourning customs strictly prohibit. Onlookers said she muttered as she passed, "You changed him twice. Once in life, once in death." The press tried to capture the moment, but every photo taken mysteriously came out blurred. One photographer later claimed that his camera malfunctioned right as he focused on the urn. The lens cracked, though no one had touched it. By nightfall, as the funeral drew to a close, a heavy mist rolled into the cemetery. Many described it as unnatural, dense, almost metallic in scent. The security guards ordered everyone to leave, but fans refused. They lit candles outside the gates, chanting Yu's name into the fog. Then came a moment that froze every soul in attendance. From inside the hall, long after everyone had left, came the faint sound of a piano. A melody many recognized instantly. "Falling Stars," the song Yu had written months before his death. The lights inside flickered, and through the stained glass windows, shadows seemed to move. No one could explain how the music played. There was no piano in the hall. But several witnesses swore they heard his voice, humming softly behind the melody. The next